The Frozen Mockery on the Eastern Front. June 4th, 1944, midnight. Deep in a snow-dusted command bunker near the Dnieper River, Eastern Front. The air hangs heavy with the acrid stink of cigarette smoke and damp earth. Lanterns flickering shadows across maps scarred by pencil marks of endless advances and retreats. Marshal Georgy Zhukov leans over the table, his broad shoulders casting a giant silhouette as his top commanders, hardened men like General Konstantin Rokossovsky and Colonel General Nikolai Vatuchin, huddled close, their breaths clouding in the chill. A courier bursts in, mud-caked boots thudding on the plank floor, clutching a crumbled intelligence report from Moscow's spies in the west. Zhukov snatches it, scans the lines, then lets out a gravelly chuckle that echoes like distant artillery. "Listen to this, comrades," Zhukov rumbles, his voice a mix of amusement and disdain. "The Führer's so-called Fortress Europe, miles of concrete bunkers, minefields, and barbed wire along the French coast. Hitler boasts it's impregnable, a wall to shatter any invader." Rokossovsky, his face etched with scars from Stalingrad's ruins, snorts derisively, slamming a fist on the table. "A paper tiger. While we bleed the Wehrmacht dry here in the mud and ice, the Americans and British sip tea and play at war. What are they waiting for? Another Lend-Lease shipment of spam?" The room erupts in rough laughter, the kind born from exhaustion and bitter triumph. Vatuchin joins in, his eyes narrowing as he traces a finger along the map's red arrows piercing toward Berlin. "Let the Nazis fortify their beaches. By the time the Westerners stir, we'll have hoisted the red flag over the Reichstag ourselves." Boom of Soviet Katyusha rockets pulverizing German lines. These men, survivors of Leningrad's siege and Kursk's armored apocalypse, have seen the Third Reich's might crumble under relentless Red Army assaults. Over 2 years of barbaric warfare on the Eastern Front have claimed millions. Soviet soldiers charging into machine gun nests, T-34 tanks clashing with Panthers in thunderous duels, civilians enduring famine in besieged cities. Zhukov's forces have pushed back from Moscow's gates to the borders of Poland, draining Hitler's armies of men and machines. Yet, news from the West filters in like a distant echo. Allied bombings over Germany, Italian campaigns slogging through mountains, but no grand invasion of Europe proper. The Atlantic Wall, that vaunted chain of fortifications from Norway to Spain, over 15,000 concrete structures manned by Field Marshal Erwin Rommel's Army Group B, seems a joke to these Eastern warriors. Rommel's Desert Fox, now guarding beaches, Rokossovsky quips? "Let him build his walls. Our Siberian divisions will tear through from the east while he waits for ghosts." But beneath the mockery simmers a quiet frustration. Stalin himself has prodded Roosevelt and Churchill at Tehran conferences, demanding a second front to relieve the Soviet Union's staggering burden. "The Germans transferred divisions west," Vatuchin mutters, pointing to reports of panzer units redeployed from Kursk, survivors. "If the Allies don't strike soon, we'll crush the beast alone. But at what cost?" Zhukov nods, his mind already plotting the next offensive, Operation Bagration, a colossal hammer blow set to shatter Army Group Center. The laughter fades as they pore over logistics, ammunition shortages, fuel rationed to the drop, soldiers patched together from conscripts and veterans alike. In this frozen hell, the idea of American GIs and British Tommies lounging in England while Soviets die by the thousands breeds resentment. Yet whispers of something brewing across the channel reach even here. Rumors of vast armadas assembling, paratroopers training in secrecy. As the night drags on, a radio crackles to life with intercepted German transmissions,
hinting at heightened alerts along the Normandy coast. Zhukov straightens, his chuckle turning thoughtful. Perhaps the paper tiger will roar after all. The commanders exchange glances, the mockery laced now with a flicker of curiosity. Little do they know, in just hours, the skies over France will fill with the drone of Allied aircraft, and the beaches will erupt in a storm that could change everything. What if the West finally unleashes its fury? Could it tip the scales in ways even these battle-hardened generals can't yet imagine?
The storm breaks at dawn, June 6, 1944, 05:30 hours, off the Normandy coast, aboard HMS Warspite. Salt spray lashes the steel decks as the battleship's 15-inch guns belch fire, orange flashes ripping through the pre-dawn gloom. The sea is a churning nightmare, waves slamming against Higgins boats, drenching the young American GIs crammed shoulder to shoulder inside. The storm breaks at dawn, June 6, 1944, 05:30 hours. Off the Normandy coast, aboard HMS Warspite. Salt spray lashes the steel decks as the battleship's 15-inch guns belch fire, orange flashes ripping through the pre-dawn gloom. The sea is a churning nightmare, waves slamming against Higgins boats, drenching the young American GIs crammed shoulder to shoulder inside. You can taste the diesel fumes, hear the retch of seasick soldiers, feel the dread knotting their guts as the ramp drops and the first bullets whip overhead. This is Omaha Beach, codenamed Bloody Omaha before the sun even rises. Aboard one landing craft, Private First Class Harold Baumgarten of the 116th Infantry Regiment clutches his M1 Garand, knuckles white. "We're going to die," he whispers to the man beside him, but the words are swallowed by the roar of naval shells screaming toward the bluffs. Then the ramp crashes down. Cold water floods in up to their waists. Machine guns from Widerstandsnist 62 rake the shallows, tracers stitching red lines across the surf. Men crumple before they take 3 steps. Baumgarten stumbles over a body, pushes forward, and somehow reaches the shingle. Behind him, the tide turns crimson. 5 miles west, at Pointe de Hoc, the cliffs rise like a fortress wall, 100 feet of sheer rock pocked with German bunkers. Captain John Rain and his 5th Ranger Battalion scaled them with rope ladders and grappling hooks under a hail of grenades. One ranger, Sergeant William Stivison, slips, dangles by one arm as a potato masher grenade explodes below, showering him with shrapnel. He keeps climbing. At the top, they find the big 155mm guns. Gone. Moved inland days earlier. Rommel's deception. But the Rangers dig in anyway, holding the promontory against counterattacks, buying precious hours for the beaches. Further east, on Sword Beach, British commandos of Lord Lovett's 1st Special Service Brigade storm ashore to the wail of bagpipes. Piper Bill Millen strides through the surf, kilt soaked, playing Blue Bonnets Over the Border as bullets snap past. German defenders in the casino strongpoint hesitate, just long enough for the commandos to breach the wire and silence the guns with grenades and Sten bursts. By 08 o'clock, Union Jacks fly over the seaside town of Oostraville. Back in the Soviet bunker, the first fragmented reports crackle over the radio net. A signals officer bursts in, eyes wide. "Comrade Marshal, massive landings in Normandy, thousands of ships, aircraft blackening the sky." Zhukov's pipe freezes halfway to his lips. Rokoski leans forward, scanning the teletype. Paratroopers behind the lines? Rangers climbing cliffs? The Atlantic Wall is breached. The mockery dies in their throats. This is no feint. This is the Second Front, unleashed with a fury that rivals Stalingrad's cauldron. But the day is far from won. On Omaha, the tide of battle teeters. German 352nd Division counterattacks, pushing survivors into a thin strip against the seawall.
Destroyers like USS Satterley steam in dangerously close, their 5-inch guns dueling bunkers at point-blank range. One shell from Satterley obliterates a pillbox, saving a company pinned for hours. By noon, gaps open. Sherman DD tanks, those that didn't sink, rumble ashore. Engineers blow lanes through obstacles with Bangalore torpedoes. The line holds, barely. As dusk falls, Zhukov stares at the map, red arrows now stabbing westward from England's ports. Vatutin mutters, "They've done it. The beast is wounded from both sides now." But a new message arrives. German panzer divisions, including the elite 12th SS Panzer Hitlerjugend, are racing toward Caen. The fight for Normandy has only begun. And somewhere in the Ardennes forests, Hitler's generals are already sketching a desperate counterstroke that could turn the tide once more. What happens when the Führer gambles everything on one last winter offensive? And how will Zhukov's Red Army react when the Western Allies falter in the snow?
The Bulge in the Snow. December 16th, 1944. 0530 hours. Elsenborn Ridge, Ardennes Forest. A bone-chilling fog blankets the pine trees, muffling the first rumble of Panther engines as Hitler's last reserves, Army Group B, under General Feldmarschall Walter Model, smash into the thinly held American lines. Shells scream down on the 2nd Infantry Division's foxholes. Private First Class Kurt Goebel, 19 years old, burrows into frozen earth as 88mm rounds shred the trees overhead, showering him with splinters. "This can't be real," he gasps. "We were told the Krauts were finished." Surprise is total. 6 miles south in the Losheim Gap, SS Obersturmbannführer Joachim Peiper leads Kampfgruppe Peiper, 1st SS Panzer Division Leibstandarte, in a lightning thrust. His King Tigers, 70 tons of steel, grind over icy roads, machine-gunning anything that moves. At a crossroads near Melmedi, Peiper's men herd 84 American prisoners into a field and open fire. The massacre shocks even hardened veterans. Word races up the chain. The Germans are fighting like cornered wolves. In Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, SHAEF, Versailles, General Dwight Eisenhower slams a fist on the map table. "They've achieved tactical surprise," he growls to his staff, Omar Bradley, Courtney Hodges, George Patton. Intelligence Officer Colonel Benjamin Dixon had warned of unusual radio chatter days earlier, but fog and overconfidence blinded the Allies. Now a 70-mile bulge drives deep into Belgium. Bastogne, key road junction, is encircled. Inside, Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe's 101st Airborne Division digs in among the snowdrifts. Ammunition low, medical supplies frozen. They brace for siege.
Back in Moscow, Zhukov receives the news via secure teletype. He stands motionless, pipe smoke curling. Rokossovsky breaks the silence. The paper tiger bites back. For a moment, the old mockery resurfaces. Could the Western Allies crumble? Then Zhukov's eyes narrow. No, this is desperation. Hitler bleeds his last panzer divisions in the west while we prepare to cross the Vistula. He turns to the map, tracing the Red Army's winter offensive. 2.2 million men, 4,000 tanks, poised for the Vistula Oder push. The Ardennes gamble, he realizes, is the Führer's death rattle. On December 22nd, a German emissary under white flag approaches Bastogne's perimeter. He demands surrender. McAuliffe's reply is one word: nuts. The paratroopers cheer, their breath freezing in the air. Outside the town, Peiper's spearhead stalls, fuel gone, bridges blown by retreating Americans. Snow turns roads to quagmire. Luftwaffe sorties, promised in thousands, materialize in dozens. Allied jobos own the skies. Christmas Eve. Patton's Third Army executes a 90-degree wheel in blizzard conditions. Lead elements of the 4th Armored Division, Lieutenant Colonel Abrams' tanks punch through to Bastogne on December 26th. The corridor is narrow, under constant shelling, but the screaming eagles are relieved. Inside the town, a GI hands a paratrooper a frozen can of beans. "Merry Christmas, buddy." Laughter amid the ruins. By New Year's, the Bulge is contained. Modal's armies are spent. No reserves, no fuel, no hope. Eisenhower orders a counterstroke. Hodge's 1st Army and Patton's 3rd grind forward, link up, erase the salient. German losses, 120,000 men, 600 tanks. Irreplaceable. Far to the east, Zhukov's artillery opens the prelude to the end. On January 12, 1945, 4 Soviet fronts, over 300 divisions, crash across the Vistula. The laughter in that frozen bunker is gone. Respect has replaced it. The West held, the East surges. Berlin lies between them, burning. But one final secret remains buried in the Ardennes snow. A secret that will decide if the war ends in weeks or drags into summer. What did the captured German staff maps reveal about Hitler's last redoubt?
The maps that doomed the Reich. January 27th, 1945, 1400 hours. A shattered chateau near Hofali's, Belgium, once a German regimental HQ, now a smoking ruin. Snow drifts through shell holes in the roof as Captain Kenneth Strong, Eisenhower's G2 intelligence chief, kneels beside a splintered desk. A safe yawns open, its door blown by a satchel charge. Inside, leather map cases stamped Geheim. Strong's gloved fingers tremble as he unrolls the top sheet. Red arrows snake from the Ardennes to the Rhine, then halt. Beyond lies a single word in Gothic script, Alpine Festung. You can almost hear the wind howling through the broken windows, carrying the distant clank of Sherman tracks grinding west. Strong's aide, Major David Niven, yes, the actor, now in uniform, peers over his shoulder. "My God," Niven whispers, "they really believed they could fall back to the Alps." The maps detail Hitler's phantom last stand, mountain redoubts in Bavaria, tunnels stocked with ammunition, SS divisions to fight on after Berlin falls. Every pass, every bunker, every supply cache is marked. It's a fortress that exists only on paper, but the Germans bled the Ardennes dry to buy time for it. Back at SHAEF, Eisenhower studies the captured plans under a green banker's lamp. Bradley,
Patton, boots dripping melted snow, snorts, "A fairy tale for fanatics." But the implications hit like a tiger shell. The Bulge wasn't just a spoiling attack. It was a covering action to strip the West while the Reich's corps prepared a Wagnerian finale. Eisenhower's mind races. If even 50,000 SS holdouts dig into the Alps, the war could drag into 1946. American mothers would riot. Stalin would smell weakness. Across the continent, in a rail car parked on a siding outside Berlin, Zhukov receives the same intelligence via British liaison. He spreads the Alpine maps beside his own. Soviet spearheads already 300 miles inside Poland, the first Belarusian front under his command poised to leap the Oder River. Rokossovsky taps the Bavarian redoubts. "Let the Westerners chase ghosts in the mountains. We take Berlin." But Zhukov's eyes linger on the Alpine lines. He remembers Stalingrad, how a surrounded army can fight for months. "No," he mutters, "we end this before the snow melts." February 4th, 1945, Yalta Conference, Crimea. Roosevelt, frail in his wheelchair, Churchill puffing a cigar, Stalin swirling Armenian brandy. The Alpine maps lie on the table like a shared secret. Stalin leans forward. Comrade Eisenhower believes the Nazis may prolong the agony in their southern lair. The Red Army can be in Vienna in weeks,
From there, the Alps are a day's march. Churchill bristles, Austria in Soviet hands, but Roosevelt nods. The deal is struck. The Western Allies will bomb every rail line south of Munich, while the Red Army drives a dagger through the Reich's soft underbelly. March 7, 1945. Remagen, Rhine River. By sheer luck, Lieutenant Karl Timmermann's Company A, 9th Armored Division, seizes the Rudendorf Bridge before German engineers can blow it. Across the intact span pours the U.S. First Army. The Rhine, Hitler's last natural barrier, is breached.
April 12, 1945. Warm Springs, Georgia. Roosevelt dies. In Moscow, Zhukov raises a silent glass. The race is on. April 16, 04 hours, Zehlendorf Heights, outskirts of Berlin. 1 million Soviet shells open the final assault. T-34-85s with searchlights blinding German defenders. IS-2 heavy tanks smashing through barricades. The Alpine dream dies unheard beneath the thunder. April 25, 1945, Torgau, Elbe River. Lieutenant William Robertson, U.S. 69th Infantry, and Lieutenant Alexander Silvashko, 58th Guards Division, shake hands across a shattered bridge. The link-up. Germany sliced in two. No retreat to the mountains, no last stand. In the ruins of the Reich Chancellery, a charred fragment of the Alpine maps flutters in the wind. Zhukov steps over it, boots crunching on broken marble. The mockery of Fortress Europe, the desperation of the Bulge, the phantom redoubt, all dust. The war in Europe ends 8 days later. But one question lingers in the smoke. What became of the fanatics who vanished into the peaks with the gold of the Reichsbank?